Hey everybody, this is Matt again with another video, and we are going to be doing a perfume model. One of my subscribers, he said he wanted to have some help with making a perfume bottle or a render like this and how to accomplish such. Majority of the perfume renders I have on my channel, they are either time-lapse or they are scene breakdown, so it's not model start to finish. So in this we're going to be modeling, texturing, and lighting to replicate this image here that I found on Pinterest with this Dolce & Gabbana Intenso. So yeah, let's get started by the modeling. So let's go into Blender and we're going to go to Shift A and we're going to go to Cylinder. And right now it has too many segments, so we want to drop this in half, so 16. And then we are going to go into tab for edit mode and go into edit mode. And if you're curious about that pie menu that I have here, you actually go to preferences and you enable it here in key maps. And when you hit tab for pie menu, you actually get it instead of having the standard thing. And I find that that helps with, gives you a little bit more speed in choosing which one you want. So yeah, so edit mode, and then we're going to press the tilde key, and that's above the tab key, and we're going to go to front and go into the X-ray mode. We're going to highlight these by dragging across, and then we're going to hit Control B, and what that's going to do is give us a bevel. So we want the bevel to be about like that, and we're going to add some segments, and about here is be fine. Again, looking at your reference, you want to make sure that you come as close as possible. Ideally, you would need to, if you're going for absolute accuracy, you would put an image in the background and you will model it from that. But this is simple shape, so I won't be doing that for this particular render. So now that we have that, we want to go to turn off X-ray mode. You want to go into edit, go to face select this face here at the top, and we're going to hit E for extrude, and we're going to extrude on the Z. So right here should be fine. We're going to, with that face still selected, we're going to press I, we're going to insert, and we're going to do the same thing for the bottom. I, insert. And you move your mouse and it will allow you to choose how big you want to make the insertion. Alright, so again, what we're going to do now is press Ctrl R and we're going to add some loop cuts. And what this is doing is actually adding some support lines for our subdivision surface so that the shape keeps its form. So we're going to hit Ctrl R again, we're going to add a loop cut here, Ctrl R, we're going to add a loop cut here. So I believe that that's all that we would need right now for the subdivision surface. So we go to modifiers, subdivision surface, crank that to about 3, and go into object mode, and this is what we have. Perfect. So we're going to shade smooth, right click, shade smooth. If you want, you could actually turn on your normals. Not necessary in this one, but I'm going to add, not really going to see this face really, but I'm going to add a loop cut here to make it a little bit more sharp. So there about it. Alright, so with that applied, we're going to turn off the subdivision for a bit. We're going to add a Solidify, and we're going to drag it right here by this icon here and drag it above the subdivision surface. Again, we are going to hit the tilde key, go to front, and turn on X-ray. And as you can see, what the Solidify is actually doing, if I turn it off, is actually adding some thickness. And glass has some thickness, so you want to add some thickness for the glass to work properly. So we're going to enable even thickness, and we are going to do that. and that should be sufficient. So we're going to hit Control A, and that's going to apply the Solidify. With the subdivision surface still turned off, you want to go to tab again, edit mode. You want to go to face, and we want to click this face right here, the face inside. So again, we're going to go to front. We're going to press Control plus, and that is going to allow us to grow a selection on the inside faces. So these are the faces that we will want. So we're going to hit Shift D, and we're going to drag it out, and then we're going to hit Escape. And then what we are going to do is going to press P, selection. So to explain what happened there just now, we duplicated the faces that we had, and then we separated them by selection. So now we have two cylinders here. So what we're going to do, we're going to name this one here bottle, and then we're going to rename this one perfume. Alright, so we're going to hide the bottle for now, and then we're going to go back out into view, and what we're going to do now is just check the normals because they're going to be flipped. Blue means that they're in the right direction, reds means that they're in the opposite direction. So tab, edit mode, A to select all of the vertices, go to mesh, normals, flip normals. So this is what we want. So now we could turn off face orientation, go into vertices selection. We're going to click all on one of the vertices. We are going to get a selection of the rings, and then we're going to hit F for face. And now we are back here. So we could apply the subdivision surface, and now this is what we have. So turn off that, and we're going to go to bottle itself, and we could turn on this as well. So we're going to go to front view. Again, go to X-ray, and then we could turn on the bottle. And if you want to see that properly, we could actually go to random, and you're going to see that both of them are different colors. So with the perfume selected, we want to zoom in as close as we can, and what we want to do is scale so that it intersects with some of the glass. So we're going to press S, Shift Z, and then we're going to scale it in a little bit. Now you're going to see that this is the actual bottle, and it's actually intersecting, and this is what we want, because you either want to scale into it or you want to scale down when you're dealing with liquids, because if there's in the same position, it's actually caused some issues with shading. So now that we scale the perfume with the object, we could actually see that our scale is offset. So with the perfume still selected, we want to press Alt A and apply the scale. Alright, so turn off that, and what we're going to do right now, we're going to make the cap. So we're going to make this part here. So we're going to go again, apply cylinder. We're going to press again Shift S, and then Shift Z, and we're going to scale it right there, and then we're going to scale on the Z to be about right there. Then we're going to press GZ, and we have this GZ again to just make sure that we have it in the position that we want it to be at. Alright, so with that selected, we're going to press the slash key on the keyboard, or the question mark key, and that's going to isolate, bring us into isolation mode. Then we're going to tab, edit, and we're going to add 2 loop cuts, and then we're going to scale them on the Z to be about right here. Go to face select, I, and set. This one we're going to I, and set to about here. And then we want to hit R. We're going to add 2 loop cuts there. And then we're going to go back to the face. Go here. Tilde. Go front. E. And Z. And we're going to extrude up to here. Then what we're going to do is go back out of X-ray mode. And we're going to, with that face still selected, we're going to press I. And then we're going to hit Ctrl R again, add 2 loop cuts, press, scale on the Z, and this is going to give us the structure again for our subdivision surface when we do apply it. So go again to front view with your tilde key, and what we're going to be making right now is this ridge part here. So if we go to R, we drag that to about here, and then R, and we have that. I'm just going to bring this one down again, and I think there is fine. So with the selection mode, we're going to click on one of these lines here by pressing Alt and left click, and that's going to create a selection with rings around. We're going to press E for extrude, escape to cancel that, and then we're going to hit Alt S, and that's going to allow us to scale on the X and Y axis at the same time. And we want a shape like this, so we're going to press R again, 2 loop cuts, scale Z, we want that, and then we have a loop cut here, a loop cut here, a loop cut we want to be under here. Sorry, I applied it the wrong place. We want R right here, 1 would do, and 1 right here. Alright, so if we go into object mode, we will see we have this. We're going to hit smooth, again apply this, and then we're going to apply the subdivision surface and turn that also up to 3. So now this is the shape that we have. So again, by pressing the question mark, you would see that we go into front view. This is the shape, and this is what we have. Okay. So this covers the basics of the modeling. Then we're going to move on to the shading of the bottle, and then we're going to go into the section with lighting after that. Alright, so we're going to be dealing with the shading right now. Before we do that, let me just name this the right thing, which is cap. And change the color. So we're just going to go over to shading. What we're going to do here is actually going to close this. So we're going to close that there. We're going to go to outliner, put it down here, and then we're going to create this one to be a 3D viewer. And then to add some, we're going to add a camera. So we're going to Control A camera. We're going to press Alt R, and that's going to clear the rotation. And then what we're going to press is RX 90. And in this view, we're going to press the tilde key and go to camera, view camera. And in this view, we're going to press GY, and that is going to give us a view that we want like that. Now, if you look at our reference again, if you look at our reference here, we can see that is a square format, so we want to copy that. So get right into our properties, and we're going to just type 1920. And then we're going to go to GZ and just raise that a bit. And then we want to change our camera to something about 80, 85. GY again. And something like that looks fine. You're just going to add a plane just for the ground. GZ control. And then we're going to tab into edit mode and scale that so that I wouldn't have to apply the scale. So that is fine. So with the bottle selected right here, we're gonna hit new, and we actually want to change this to be in cycles. So we have it in cycles. We want to go to rendered view, and for now, let's turn on world lighting, and that's just for us to see what we are working with. So turn off the perfume. So being that we are dealing with glass here, what we want to do is go to roughness and turn it all the way down. Transmission, turn it all the way up. And as you can see, we already start to get a glass material right here. So with that selected, we're going to go to Shift A. We're going to go to search and volume absorption. We're going to plug that into here. Color that we want to type in a color of B28B5D, and we're going to press enter, and we're going to get this color. And if we look at this, when we increase the density, it's actually going to give us a dark color like this, which is fine. That's what we want because the bottle is actually a dark color. So we want this to be about there, and we're going to hide that, and we're going to go to the perfume now. And what we're going to do is just going to copy this material and duplicate it. So we could call this one perfume. We could call this one glass. Right. So with the perfume selected, we want to actually remove the volume from it. Well, not actually remove it. We actually just want to reduce the amount of scattering it has, or density it has, to about 1. And that should be fine. So when we plug in two of them together, we actually see that this is what we are working with. This is absolutely fine. For the cap, we're going to go to new material. We're going to name it cap, and let's look at the colors that I have here. I have them noted down. So for the cap, we want a color of 50392F. That's going to give us this dark color. And then if we get a little bit closer to that, we want to enable metallic all the way up. Look at it from a different point of view. And then we want to change the roughness down to about there. And again, looking at our reference, we could see it's partially glossy, which is the look that we're looking for. Still has some roughness and still have some gloss to it. All right. So back to the bottle, the perfume. We're gonna apply the texture to it, which would be the text. And I prepared one of them inside of Affinity Photo. So you click on the principal BSDF and hit Control T. And what that's going to do is just create this mapping node here and texture node, image texture that we could then apply. So we're going to go to where I had the file selected, so documents, B3D, and I think down to tutorials, perfume, textures, and this PDF. As you could see, it's applying the texture all over the place. We're going to fix that by going into the shader. Before we do that, we want to see this. We're going to plug this into the emission. And then we're going to change repeat to clip. And make sure that it's on UV. So we're going over to the UV. And again, we're going to go right here. Again, turn on to world. And this is what we have. What we want to do is go to our materials. We want to apply our subdivision by Control A. We have to do that outside of edit mode though. So tap back into edit mode. And we're going to turn off this here for now, and then we are going to go to front view, isolate it, and then what we could do is again go make sure that you're in face selection. We're going to click on Alt and on the line here, and we're going to continue. Sometimes it gets a little bit confused, but you want to make sure that you're clicking on the line to select the ring of selections. And I'm doing this just to get the ring of selection where I want the texture to go. And then I'm going to press U, cylinder projection. Then we're going to invert that by Control I. And then over here in the UV editor, we're going to actually drag this above here. And the reason we are doing that is so that the texture won't map to these particular faces here. So Control I again to invert selection, and then we're going to highlight all of them here and scale on the Y. So GY to move it up. You actually could go into edit mode. GY. That looks about good, and then we're going to scale it on the Z. I mean the Y's. I mean X, sorry. We went too far. Scale X. And something looking like this is what we want. And there we go. We have the texture on the bottle. So if we go press question mark again, we see that we have the texture here. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this part. We're then going to move on to to lighting, sorry. And we're going to pick back up from where we left off. Alright, so we're back again, and we're going to be focusing on lighting. Before we get to the lighting, let's do some organization. So we're going to name this collection Perfume. We're going to drag the camera out of the selection and leave it in the scene selection. We have this plane here, which is we're going to rename to the floor. We're going to duplicate that. RX90 GZ here, and we're going to move that to the back. I'm just going to leave it there for now. We're going to call this one BG, and then we are going to move two of these into their own collection called BG. We're going to move the cap into its own collection called cap. And the reason I'm doing this is going to become clear later on. And then we want a new collection called lights, which would be this one. Alright, so now we are dealing with lights. Actually, let me see if now that we are doing with lighting, let's go over to the animation side, because I usually like to use this for lighting up my scenes as well. Tab, this one is going to be the rendered view. So we're going to turn on rendered view and those settings off. Go to world, make sure that it's black, close to back. And we see that this is the lighting that we have. The only lighting that we have is because we have this plugged into the emission. Actually, let me fix that quickly, because there's a color that is assigned to that. What you want to do is add a color ramp, and for the white slider, the hex code that we're going to plug in. Let me just zoom in a little bit. The hex code that we want for the label, we want to be B2734C. That's going to give us this color right here. So back into animation, we could turn off this rendered view from here. Back into animation, this is what we're faced with. So we're not going to be using any of these lights here, but we're going to be using images, planes for emission. So we're going to be back and forth out of shading. So we could go there right now actually. Turn off these. Don't mind the fogginess. That's because Eevee is rendering this. We have certain things inside of the thing here. Actually, this shouldn't have on a material actually. Those should have their separate materials, and we're going to deal with those in this lighting section as well. So RY, 90. Call this light. Bring it over to the X. Oops, I actually deleted it. GX. Scale it on the Z, and then we're going to scale it on the Y a little bit. We're going to apply the scale and rotation. And now what we're going to do is apply a texture to this one. So with principal BSDF selected, we're going to Shift S, and this is going to allow us to swap the shader that we have here with emission. And as you can see, we are already starting to get some lighting. So Control T, this is going to allow us to do some shader tricks. We're going to change this again with Shift S, and we're going to add a gradient texture. And as you can see what it's doing there already, we actually want to rotate this 180. There you go. So we want that, and then what we want to do, we want to duplicate these. Shift D, drag them down here, and we're going to plug this one into that. And what we want to do is go to this, and we're going to type this into 90. And then what we want to do is apply a color ramp. This is going to allow us to control, I believe, there you go. We want a color ramp for here as well. So Shift D. We're going to plug this into here and view that. Okay, so we're going to drag these across a little bit. What we want to add is a mix RGB. Change that setting to multiply, and then this to that. And then we're going to crank the factors up together. So as you can see, it makes it give this fade off that we have, and if you look at the bottle, it's kind of similar to that. So now that we have these, we could actually change them to different types. The spline actually gives a little bit a better fall off, and as you could see, we're getting the lighting that we want. So with this plane selected, I'm gonna press Alt D, and then that's gonna create an instance of that. So whatever we do with this, the original one, is gonna replicate to the other. So we're gonna press GX and bring this over to the other side. So to be about there. And that looks right. Could actually drag it across a little bit. There about. So that gives us the rim light in here. So what we want to do now again is add another plane. I'm gonna scale this a little bit, apply apply scale. We're gonna go GZ, and what we're gonna do is that we're gonna borrow some of the shaders that we have here with Control C. We're gonna go over to this. We're gonna hit New. Call this one Top Light. Shift S. Change it to an emission shader, and then we're gonna paste these nodes into it. Now what we're going to do is change this from linear to quadratic sphere and change the UV to object. That's going to place the circle right here in the center. So we're going to go here, we're going to scale these up a little bit, and then we're going to scale the Y a little bit like that. And what we want to do is we want to get that smooth fall off that we have here. So by looking at that, we could see that we need to scale this a little bit more. Doesn't have to be exact, but the closer you get it, the better. And then we're going to rotate this a little bit on the X. And for the brightness on this, let's say about 30. And for the brightness on these, we want them to be about 19. And we can see what we have happening here. So we're going to fix a lot of this afterwards. So we could just bring some adjustments again. Usually in scenes like this, the lighting always takes the majority of the time. So you always want to make sure that you're spending as much time on the lighting, because lighting is what makes or breaks an image. So this section might be actually longer than usual, but this is the first half. So now we're going to do something kind of interesting. We're going to start the setup view layers. So what we're going to do, we're going to drag this up a little bit. We're going to go to view layer, and we're actually going to go into hide the collections here. And we're going to create one which is called bottle. And we're going to create one called cap. And then we're going to create another one called BG. And that is basically what we're going to do is go to bottle, for example. And if you don't have these icons, what you need to do is go to this filter right here, and you could enable these. But these are going to be helpful for this particular tutorial, so enable all of them except this one. I don't really use that one. So we're just going to make this side here a little bit bigger. So for the bottle, what we want are only, we want these to be on. These are the only layers that we want to be on for the bottle. So again, if you go to here, this is what we're going to see. And again, I'm going to scale it in a little bit. GZ. I'm not too pleased with the amount of emission that we're getting there. I actually want it a little bit softer. Sure about that. So kind of like that. So that is what I want. Let's go back to the view layers. Let's go to cap. Cap, what we want to be on is, if we take one of these lights, we want to take, and the reason that I split this is to allow me to place certain things inside of the collection. It's going to be a little bit hard to explain, but if I turn on these lights, for example, we have this light 1. We got to call that left. So L. light dot R. So with that selected, even though they are part of this collection, we could actually drag it in from down here into the cap collection. And that's going to create like a link instance of the lights. So what I could do is actually turn off lights, and you're going to still see that these are going to be active here. So if we go to the cap, we go to, let's go to animation for right now. What we want is to have a light shining right here. So right here in the center, as you can see right here in the reference. So with that, we're going to go to make sure that the cap is selected, the collection. We're going to go to A, plane, and then we're going to create another shader setup. I'm going to call this cap top. And we could call it cap top light. We're going to shift S, shader, emission. Then we're going to paste the selection that we had before in here. And we could already see what's happening. So again, we're going to change this to object. And we're going to change this to quadratic sphere. Quadratic sphere. And then what we're going to do, we're going to increase the size. Well, it's not only the quadratic sphere, but the size of the actual plane. Apply scale, and then again we will have to come in here and do that. So we're going to scale it on the Y a little bit like that. And if we go into our camera view, which is over here, which should be locked but I didn't. I'm going to go as GZ. We're going to rotate it on the X. And then we're going to go back on the Y. And as you could see, as I take it back, that image is highlighting here. So then what we want to do is again rotate it on the Z. And we're going to bring it down on the Z. And with this plane selected, we're going to go to the object properties. Well, the plane properties right here. We're going to go to visibility. And we're going to turn off camera. And that way it was not going to obstruct our view from the camera. So then we're going to GZ. And we're going to have this. Again, what we could do with this one is increase the brightness. And now we could see that our cap is lit a little bit properly. So we just want to bring it across a little bit so you could get a little bit more of that highlight. And again, it's just a matter of tweaking. Make the rotation a little bit too close. So we have that. If there's any more tweaking, we could do that afterwards. So then we could move on to the BG. And if you go to this layer, we're going to leave everything. We're going to deactivate the cap for now. And then we're going to work on the shaders for the planes that we have right here. So for these planes selected, we want to go to Control T. Again, we're going to do a similar setup with the lights, but differently. So Shift S, shader, texture, gradient texture. We want to have this to be quadratic sphere. Then we want to add a color ramp. And again, we want to make sure that this is on object instead of UV. We could isolate this by pressing the question mark key. We could still see what's going on over here. So that's a good thing about it. We could actually scale these. So we have something like this. Change this to Lin B-spline. And then we want to have a gradual fall off. Or maybe should I put it on ease? There you go. So we want this to be on ease. And again, we are going to stretch it like that, but still make it a little bit bigger because we want to have that kind of a fall off. So for that color of the background, again, we're going to zoom in here. We're going to type in a hex color. We want FFD 1AB. So there you go. So what we're going to do here now, we're going to add another color ramp. Color ramp. We're going to plug this in here. Plug this into the roughness. And what that is going to do is going to give us a glossy material on the outside and a rough material on the inside. But we actually want it the other way around. So what we could do, we could change those. And as you could see, we get that reflection that we get from here, while also keeping the corners matte. So in product rendering, it's all about knowing certain tips and tricks, and these are just some of the things that I use to get certain images. So we're just going to tweak that a little bit to get the fall off a little bit, or you could actually change that color to be a little bit more on the gray side if you want. And I think that should be that for that particular one. So we're going to hit the question mark again, and then we're going to go to this one, and this one has a similar setup. So we could actually click on this, copy these two, and this one we're going to paste that in there. And what we want to do is come here, and we're going to plug that into the base color and also into the emission. And then we want to move these a little bit. So we have this. You want to scale this again a little bit like that. Make this a little bit bigger. And I'm not too happy with placement here, so I'm just going to tweak that a little bit. Then what we could do is take this and then rotate on the Y. Rotate it on the Y. Make sure that you have the whole camera in view. G, Z, and then we could bring it across on the X. And again, we have something kind of similar. We could just do a little bit more of that, and we have something similar to what we had before. Right, so in getting back to the layout that we had before, what we want to have active in this one is if we go to camera, then we enable, we want to render region. What we want to have enable is the background, of course. We want the cap off, but in here we want left light into the BG and right light into the BG. And then we can turn off lights. And then what we want to have happen in here for the perfume is the hold out. So that's going to put a hole into here, but it's actually going to still have this in here. And then we want to have the indirect, sorry, we want to have for the lights, that's what we have for the lights. So if anything, this is what we should have. And then when we render, if we turn off these BG, so I'm just making sure that I have everything right. So it's BG perfume, yeah. So it's BG perfume for this one. For the bottle, this is what we have. And for the cap, this is what we have. So I think that looks a little bit reasonable for now. What we could going to do is go into our compositor, and we're going to just do a slight compositing setup here. So we're going to Shift D, duplicate that. We're going to change this one to bottle. Well, actually BG. And then we're going to Shift D that. And we're going to call this one cap. So if we go to the bottle, there's something that I'm missing. And it's actually a backlight. So what we want again is to add a plane, rotate on the X 90 degrees. Again, before we do anything, we're going to turn off the visibility inside of the camera. And then we are going to move it on the Y like that. So with that selected, let's go to shading. We're going to go to one of these lights again, and we're going to steal a couple nodes. So copy, and then we are going to click on this, which we will call backlight. So the backlight, we're going to go to new, call this backlight. Again, Shift S, shader emission. If that's selected, we're going to plug these into here. We're actually going to go to HSV, change the saturation down to naught. And we're going to see we're getting some glow. But again, when we plug this into here, and we reset these settings, for example, to 1, and we look at it from the background, we could see that we have another quadratic sphere set up here. So what we're going to do is leave it like that. And then we're going to move it, apply this rotation, and we're going to move that on the Z. And then scale it. We want to have something like this. So it's actually the Z that we want to have with this one. Right, so something like around here. And again, we could tweak. With these, again, I'm noticing that in here there's a little bit of fade off here. So what we could do is go to the horizontal one and try bringing that up a little bit. I don't think that is that. Right, so we have something like that. So I'm going to leave that for there for now. And then we're going to go to render. Right, so I'm looking for film, and then I'm looking for transparent. So if we re-render that again, that is going to give us a better render that we had before. As you can see, it's taken a long time on the glass as well, because of the samples that it has to do to clear up that image. Right, cool. So with that done, you could then copy this, Shift D, place this here, and then we're going to alpha over this as well. As you can see, this is what we have. So if we go over to render and we change this to viewer, you can see that this is the actual render that we have. If we look here, it's quite close. But again, spending a lot more time on the actual lighting would actually make things a lot more better as well. Obviously, there's a limited amount of time that I could spend on the tutorial, but this would suffice for now. But again, if you're working for a client, spend more time on the lighting. As you could see, there's still some more work to be done with this. You could easily spend a lot more time into the lighting to make things look a lot more smoother. But this is just to give you a general idea of what you would have to do, or what you could do to accomplish a render that is similar to this sort of thing. Obviously, it could make some more changes to the materials here as well, but this is just going to give you a general idea of what you need to do, or some of the things to look at. Always pay attention to the reference that you're trying to copy, and that is going to give you a better idea of what to do for clients, or for personal work, for portfolio pieces and what's not. So I hope that this tutorial has been informative to you. Looking forward to bring out some more tutorials later on. If you have any ideas or any other things that you would like me to cover, do so. But until next time, peace out.